Hey there. Health insurance is supposed to cover therapy. It's been the law for more than a decade. But try telling that to your insurance company. Finding a therapist who takes your insurance, it is a huge challenge, and it has not gotten easier. And you ask any therapist, they'll tell you insurance companies underpay them and bury them in paperwork. And I've heard from therapists who say some insurers even seem to put up roadblocks to going in network. So, a bunch of tech companies have jumped into the breach. They promise to make things easier. Some of them you have probably heard of. Others operate behind the scenes. But in both cases, it means big tech is sneaking into your therapist's office during your session, accessing your most personal discussions without you even knowing. So, this week, we're sharing an episode from our friends Matt Stoller and David Dayen at the podcast Organized Money, a show all about monopolies. Because here's what none of those companies are telling you or your therapist. 1, they are recording and transcribing your sessions, your most private conversations, for their own use. 2, they are using those transcripts in some cases to train AI therapists that they hope are one day going to replace human therapists, maybe altogether. And 3, they may hand some of that data over to their corporate partners or investors, which include advertising companies and insurance companies. It is all so creepy, honestly, kind of scary, and so completely gross. I mean, this is a story about a profession full of people who got into it to help others, and about what happens when the business world decides that desire to help people is a weakness to exploit. And there's actionable news in this story. A provider I see actually uses one of these platforms, and next time I see them, we're going to talk about what I've learned and what we can maybe do about it. Especially because there's some good news in this episode, too, from my home state of Illinois. A new law here may help millions of people get insurance to pay for therapy without creepy tech companies getting in the middle. I will be telling everybody I know about it here. And you might end up wanting to tell your own state legislators about it. I'm telling you, I am glad we can bring you this story. By the way, we are doing a lot behind the scenes at An Arm and a Leg right now. We're taking some time to make some big plans, and some of us may sneak in a vacation. So over the next couple of months, we'll be bringing back some of our favorite stories and maybe one or two more from other folks like this one. Stick with us. There's good stuff coming. And take care of yourself. Now, here's Organized Money.
So if you're a podcast listener, you probably know a company called BetterHelp. You maybe don't know anything about the company, but you know that it disrupts your podcast.
Hey guys, I want to take a quick break to thank another sponsor of today's episode, BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or a therapy day when you're scheduled.
A shocking amount of money has been spent to find you, the podcast listener, and tell you to sign up for this thing called BetterHelp. Matt, what is BetterHelp?
So it is a matching service for therapy. So what happened is there was this huge boom in demand for therapy starting during the pandemic period, and this episode is about the business of therapy. And it's a story about AI. It's a story about corporatization. It's also a story about independent business and public utility regulation. And BetterHelp is important because it represents the kind of attempt to corporatize this industry. So they're a matching engine between patients and therapists. They spent $100 million on podcasts. I mean, they bankrolled the industry. Our producer just told us he's produced a lot of podcasts. He said they bankrolled the industry, which is kind of true until gambling. Until gambling picked up the slack, and now you got both sides. Right. Gave you a gambling problem and then give you help for your gambling problem. But we're going to learn about some of the scandals and problems with BetterHelp, but also more broadly, what is going on with the therapy profession at this moment of AI. It is really interesting. There are a lot of echoes and parallels with some of the things we see across the economy. There's some very creepy stuff in here as well, like AI training on therapy sessions and like all the dystopian things that you're going to be totally shocked by, but also you will completely expect because, of course, they're happening.
And our guest is named Linda Michaels. She is a psychologist. She's in private practice in Chicago, and she's the co-founder of the Psychotherapy Action Network, which is trying to get the word out about these issues in therapy. She's a consulting editor of Psychoanalytic Inquiry, clinical associate faculty at the Chicago Center for Psychoanalysis, and a fellow at the Lauder Institute Global MBA program, which means she knows what she's talking about. And she has studied this business and has been, on the front lines as a therapist in private practice. And so she's going to tell us about what's happening in the industry and what's happening with these new technological shortcuts, really, or innovations, as well as a kind of way that these people who are helping or who want to go into a profession to help people are turned into business people and then are sold a product that could be their salvation, which ends up being very, very harmful.
Well, and also just there's some good news too. There's also political push that is partly successful to get access to more therapy for more people. So it's a really interesting story. Anyway, organized money. Let's get to it.
I'm David Dayan. I run the American Prospect magazine.
And I'm Matt Stoller. I write about monopolies in a newsletter called Big, and I'm the research director for a think tank called the American Economic Liberties Project.
On Organized Money, we're going to go beyond supply and demand curves and odes to visionary entrepreneurs and tell you how the business world really works.
We'll talk to business leaders, journalists, policymakers, people on the front lines who are dealing with monopoly power, competing with it, winning, losing, but ultimately fighting back.
It's a podcast about all the money and power in the world.
And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
This is a show we talk about social problems, but we're a show about business. So tell us about the basics of the business side of therapy. Like, how does a therapist make money? Who pays them? How many therapists are in America? Like, is it mostly independent practices? Who do they work for? Like, give us a snapshot of the industry.
Yeah, a lot of therapists I don't know exactly how many there are in the States. I should know this. But a lot are mom and pop shops, one person, local businesses. People who get into therapy, the therapy profession, want to help people. And that's their main goal and interest in what they do. And then when they get into the profession, they realize, oh, wow, I'm a small business owner. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff I didn't really learn about at any point. And now I'm responsible for this aspect of my practice. And to get started, a lot of therapists do tend to participate in network with insurance companies. And so they will accept whatever the reimbursement rate is that the insurance company dictates. That often is much, much lower than what the going rate, market rate is for therapy.
So they're small businesses, and they get paid by either the patient or by an insurance company of the patient who gives them a reimbursement.
Yeah. And then the therapist has to decide, is this worth it for me to continue to get reimbursed and network by the insurance company on their terms? And it's not just financial terms, but it's also the administrative requirements that the insurance companies create. You have to comply with all of that. And you're also at the mercy of the insurance company deciding what is, quote, medically necessary care. Now, that sounds like an important term and like something, people might learn about in med school, but actually it's not at all that. It's an insurance industry term, medical necessity. It's an insurance industry term that the insurance industry came up with that they can use to justify not paying for care when they don't think it's warranted, even though, of course, they've never met your patient, they've never evaluated your patient, they may not even be a psychotherapist, but they can say, well, we've decided we don't think this care is medically necessary. So because of the combination of low reimbursement rates and high admin burden, many therapists, particularly as they gain experience over time, decide, you know what, I just don't want to work this way. It's not allowing me to provide the quality, ethical level of care that I want to provide for my patients. And so they stop participating with insurance and become what we call a self-pay, private pay outside of the insurance system, where, Matt, as you said, the patient just directly pays the therapist.
Yeah.
And then the patient might go back to their own insurance company after the fact to get reimbursed themselves.
I mean, that's certainly what I'm familiar with in the therapy I've had in my life. I just wrote a check every week or however many times I saw the therapist. And I never actually made an attempt to try to get it reimbursed with insurance after the fact, although maybe I could have. But I think there's a lot of not a terribly robust amount of understanding of the sort of payment structures behind this, that the what insurance would cover, what insurance wouldn't cover. People think it's, I'm going to, I mean, it's weirdly disassociated from the health profession, like I think in the minds of a lot of people. Does that make sense? Like,
Oh, absolutely. And actually, the original reason for that is that decades ago, 60s, 70s, when health insurance plans started to be offered by employers, the original health insurance plans did not cover mental health at all.
right.
It was only for medical, surgical, and so there was no coverage. So there have to have been a lot of legislative pushes along the way to even get insurance companies to cover psychotherapy.
Right. And there was a policy, right? There was a Mental Health Parity Act that was passed as part, I think, of the Affordable Care Act that was supposed to provide for a much greater mental health coverage option. But I don't know that that's filtered down to the population.
Yeah, I think, the population is confused. We actually have done several large market research studies with the U.S. public and big samples, over 3,000 individuals surveyed. And, most people don't even know if the health insurance plan they currently have covers mental health care or not. It's really confusing. And also therapists are confused about it. But actually, the original Parity Act to get coverage for mental health care on an equal basis was passed in 2008, then strengthened later by the ACA.
If I don't get therapy, can I be reimbursed for my incredibly violent temper and alcoholism? Will my insurance company help me with that? Is that's like old school treatment? Is that what you call it? Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a joke, but the point is that
It's a joke, but I am an alcoholic with a violent temper. Like,
no, well, maybe you are. But the point is that
no judgment. Wait.
No shame.
The point of having a mental health kind of safety net is so that we don't resort to these things that are disruptive and costly to society, right? I mean, that's the whole point of why you want to cover mental health to begin with.
I want to establish the boundaries of the situation. We've talked a little bit about how insurance companies don't really cover enough. But Illinois, I understand that Illinois just passed a law that would address this problem. And it's really interesting. And we have a rule on this show, because we talk about monopolies, that everything has to be like really a bummer, except one thing on the show can be good news. And then we promise everything else will make you sad. But This is the one thing that is good. So tell us about this law and what it's for, what it does, and if it's had any impacts.
Yeah. So the law is in Illinois. It's a state law. It's House Bill 1085, and it was passed last year in 2025. And what it does, it was, took massive effort, coordination from many advocacy groups, et cetera. And what it does is it tries to correct a lot of the wrongs that the insurance companies and their policies have instituted and on the field. So, for example, as things stand now, most insurance plans pay therapists about 20% less than the Medicare rate, whereas most insurance plans pay medical doctors or surgeons 20 to 30% more than the medical rate. So that is addressed in this law. The percentage based on the Medicare rate is bumped up for therapists to be more in line with medical surgical. So that's good. That doesn't take effect until 2027. So to your question, it's a little early to see any changes or results from this. But what it also does is it improves, it tries to take on the admin burden that we were talking about, to get a therapist. If I really want to participate and be in network with an insurance company, it's a pain in the ass. Can I say that on the show?
Of course.
Okay. It's really hard. I mean, we have a mental
tell
health
us about how you
access
feel.
Yeah.
We have a mental health access crisis in this country, and it's really hard for a therapist to sign up with an insurance company to participate in their network. You got a bunch of paperwork. It can take months. I mean, this is crazy.
Right.
If I can also use that word as a therapist.
So it seems.
Well, that one's on you. Okay.
That one's worse.
So this bill will actually affect like 2.5 million people in Illinois who have insurance. Is that?
Yeah, like basically the projections are, because it will, end up paying therapists at a fair reimbursement rate, and because it will make it less burdensome for therapists to do the admin stuff, and again, even sign up with the insurance company in the first place. I just want to mention, like, it took me about 6 months to get signed up as a Blue Cross therapist. And if I were a medical doctor, that would have been about 2 weeks. I mean, we're talking about massive disparities between the psychotherapy and the medical side. So it's not just like, I don't like to do paperwork. I mean, the disparities are real and they're massive. But all of these changes that are addressed in this law in Illinois will equate, it will incent more therapists to participate with insurance as opposed to operating outside as a private pay only practice. More therapists will say, hey, this is a good deal. I can work with this. I would be happy to do this. I'll participate with insurance there. And then that will increase, many more options. That will make many more options available for therapy for individuals. They can use their insurance plans to pay for therapy. They're already buying their insurance plans. They should be able to use it. And that now, hopefully, they will. And all told, this is projected to increase access for individuals in Illinois to the tune of 2.5 million people. 2.5 million more people will be able to access, afford, pay for, find psychotherapy in Illinois.
We've seen AI disrupt industries, throughout the economy, but it seems like it's disrupting therapy in the most dangerous and worst way. So how are people using AI for mental health?
Yeah.
Talk about that, and talk about maybe there are benefits, you think, and talk about maybe some of the challenges.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, before AI entered the scene, because of all of these different dynamics we've been talking about, there were a lot of apps launched by tech firms and venture capital. But yes, now it's not only apps, but it's AI tools and just also general, chatbots, not even mental health specific chatbots, although there are some of those as well. So yeah, I mean, we do, as I said, we do have a serious access crisis in this country. More people need help and care than are receiving it, than can afford it. And so I am all for using technology and tools wisely and with care to help people who need help. So AI tools, they're immediate, they're on your phone. You pick up your phone, you can start talking, it's right there. So there is that immediacy. It can be at a much lower cost, sometimes even free, which is cool. It can be used, I think, well in ways like as an support in between psychotherapy sessions with a trained, licensed professional clinician. So, of course, these tools are not clinicians. They haven't gone to grad school. They don't have a license. They don't abide by a code of ethics. They are a product developed and sold by a technology firm, many of them based on selling advertising. So that is a radically different proposition than a clinician who has gone to graduate school and has learned about psychological and emotional problems in human development and how best to help people with complex problems of life.
It always strikes me as kind of odd when I read a story. Occasionally it'll come across the transom of like, oh, a chatbot told someone to kill themselves, right? Like it's like a common thing.
Yeah.
And that strikes me as not necessarily like a grad school problem. That's just like it's not maybe. I mean, I don't know. I guess there
Are you saying that chatbot who told the kid to kill himself didn't have the right credentials?
That's exactly right.
to do that.
But the point is they're not therapists, and they can be really dangerous too, right?
It's not
it's not just that they don't have the credentials. They do bad things, or they can.
Totally. And also, why do they, I mean, a couple of things. Why do they do bad things like that? Because, they are a large language model. They're just predicting the next word in the sentence. They are focused on maximizing engagement, keeping you using the product. And so they will say and do anything, that's their main goal. That is not the main goal of therapy. The main goal of therapy is to help people with the problems that they come in with, the ways they want to change their lives. My goal as a therapist, I want to see people graduate. I want to see people get better.
I do remember my therapist told me I was wrong sometimes, which I think is not and was not like flattering me, and was also challenging me to do things I didn't like.
Right.
I want to read you a quote. Okay, so this is a quote from Mark Zuckerberg, where he says, "I personally have the belief that everyone should probably have a therapist. It's like someone they can just talk to throughout the day, or not necessarily throughout the day, but about whatever issues they're worried about. And for people who don't have a person who's a therapist, I think everyone will have an AI."
Well, that's not what therapy is. I don't think everyone needs a therapist. That sounds like, everyone needs a journal or a diary or a place to like record their thoughts. Okay, fine. But that's not what therapy is. Therapy is for people who have problems, serious, complex problems, multiple problems that maybe go back generations in their families that they cannot unwind or understand or change by themselves. This is not about, oh yeah, I'm going throughout my day and I just want to record a few voice memos and, see what ChatGPT thinks about that. I mean, he talks about it so casually. I think, it really sounds to me like he has no idea what actual psychotherapy is for and why people might need it. Just going back again as well, I know we were joking about, ChatGPT not having gone to grad school. But, I think the big point here is that these companies are pushing these products used in ways like Zuckerberg is talking about, like, hey, everyone should use it. They should use it all day long. But these companies are not being held accountable for the results of that.
You referred to this, the fact that it's more than just AI, that there is now sort of a business model for certain apps that do this kind of virtual therapy or whatever you want to call it. Could you talk about some of these business models for therapy, these app-based therapy, assistants and things like that? What are the companies?
Yeah, there are several different kinds. I mean, one set of companies is, centered on trying to teach people skills. So it's kind of like a self-help book, but in the form of an app. So they might teach you how to do like deep breathing or meditation or, some things like that, some educational self-help type skills. Great. Okay, fine. That can be useful. That can, I incorporate some of that as a therapist. Is that psychotherapy? No, that's self-help, guided self-help. But there are apps like that. Then there are other apps that match therapists and patients. You can type in as an individual, hey, I'm looking in the zip code. I'm self-diagnosing myself and I have anxiety and, I want to be matched with a therapist, and they'll do a matching. And then they kind of say they get out of the way, but they still operate the platform. They collect your money, and they provide the technology through which you communicate with the therapist. And so they're still heavily involved, that platform. And that's a different kind of app. And some of those companies, BetterHelp and Talkspace, and I've written a lot about the fact that, when my organization, Psychotherapy Action Network, questioned, some of the ways in which Talkspace was constructing its app and some of the terms and conditions that really conflicted with the core nuts and bolts of what makes therapy therapy. I mean, they had business managers reading text transcripts. I mean, imagine you go to a therapy session and then you have after the fact, some business managers reading everything that you talked about with your therapist. I mean, it's such a violation. And all of that wasn't really clear to the client. And so we wrote a couple of letters to the American Psychological Association. And in response, Talkspace actually, we got a couple cease and desist letters from them. And then a few short weeks later, Talkspace sued us. My organization and the three co-founders as individuals sued us for defamation and libel and $40 million in damages. And being sued for $40 million as an individual was massively overwhelming and terrifying. And the very next week, of course, our lawyers resigned and said, this is way over our heads. Good luck to you. We finally found pro bono representation through Arnold and Porter in New York, which was amazing. But they said, clearly, you have the right to raise these concerns. This is a free speech issue, First Amendment. And the judge, dismissed the case. So that was a huge relief. But this is how these companies operate if you try to challenge them. And they have deep pockets and expensive lawyers to do their tasks.
Let's get you into trouble then. And more trouble.
More trouble.
Yeah. So BetterHelp and Talkspace are brands. You hear them sometimes on podcasts. What are some of the legal trouble they've gotten into with FTC or whatever else?
Yeah. And my organization and others as well, really pushed the FTC. We wrote to them and, really encouraged them to look into BetterHelp. And the FTC did actually sanction BetterHelp.
The online counseling service BetterHelp is giving back nearly $8 million to customers for sharing sensitive health information they promised to keep private.
The main thing that they sanctioned BetterHelp for was for sharing confidential private data, mental health data. What could be more private than that? For sharing that data from BetterHelp customers with social media companies so that they could track and target advertise to you when you were on other social media sites. And this is after BetterHelp in all of their advertisements. And in 2023, BetterHelp was the top advertiser on podcasts. They spent $100 million advertising on podcasts.
Wow.
And yeah. and literally all over the place. And they would advertise like, hey, you sign up with us as a customer, as a client, BetterHelp, we keep your information safe. And they did not.
One of the things we haven't brought up is the importance in therapy of trust, right? So it's not one of the dynamics here with these, with AI or with any of these other tools, is that you're not actually building a relationship with another person. How foundational is trust to therapy?
It's core. Without it, therapy doesn't work. And you know, it's without that, you can't build a relationship with your therapist. You can't open up and really talk about and explore what you need to talk about. People go to therapy, you know, with their most vulnerable, perhaps embarrassing and shameful problems and parts of themselves. And if you are not, you know, if you're not sure that that information and your most private thoughts, worries, feelings, fears, behaviors are going to be kept private, you're not going to get help. So trust is paramount. And these companies, I mean, they are on, you know, they're walking a very different path. They want to make money. They want to sell advertisements. They want to, you know, garner as much information as they can and monetize your private data. And so they're, you know, they have a totally different game that they're playing.
Let's talk about therapists themselves and how AI is impacting the profession. And it's not really AI. I would call it AI, but that's really a veil through which to disguise other changes that are happening. So therapists have been signing up for something called practice management companies. Mm-hmm. So they have names like Spring Health, Alma, Rula, Headspace, Grow Therapy. Can you briefly tell us about what practice management companies are?
Yeah. Practice management companies are a middleman that sit in between.
Love middlemen. Love them. They're so good.
I know. They're the best. They do all good. They sit in between the insurance company and the therapist. And they kind of, quote unquote, solve a lot of the problems that we were talking about early on. They take care of all the admin stuff, the billing, signing therapists up with insurance companies in the first place, you know, all of that admin hassle that we were talking about early on that is the bane of existence for most therapists. They do all of that. They also say, we'll do marketing for you, and give you a profile on Psychology Today, for example. They also say, we will ensure that if the insurance company comes back after the fact and says, you know what, we're actually not going to pay for those therapy sessions you did 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 2 years ago. It's called clawing back money. The insurance companies do clawbacks.
They do it to pharmacists too. It's a thing. Clawbacks are not unusual for middlemen.
But yeah, so they'll do the admin, they'll do marketing, and they also promise to pay therapists more per session of therapy than they say the therapists could otherwise get on their own from the insurance company, because they say, you know, we represent tens of thousands of therapists who have joined us, and that gives us negotiating power with the insurance company, so we can negotiate a better rate for you than you could get on your own, individual therapist. So we'll do all your admin, we'll pay you more, and we won't charge you a penny. Most of these are free. There are some that are a monthly subscription fee, but the majority of these practice management companies are totally free to the therapist. It sounds like golden. It sounds too good to be true, and that means it is.
Hey, it's Dave. Look, we love making Organized Money. It's the best part of our week. And the support that we get from you, it just means everything. We know you care about this stuff because you're listening to a show about how money and power actually work. So you're already in deep here with us. And yeah, we've had some pretty incredible guests, Lena Khan, Cory Doctorow, and a certain senator who apparently does laundry with us. Senator Warren, thank you so much for being on Organized Money.
Oh, thanks for having me. Big fan.
That's what I heard, that you actually listen to this show.
I do. You have done laundry with me. You've taken the dog out with me. There's a lot of stuff we've been doing together for the last many, many months.
So here's the thing. If you want to go deeper with the show, head to organizedmoney.fm. Sign up. You'll get transcripts, videos of every episode, also emails every time a new episode drops. So all the good stuff. And if you can swing it, we'd love if you could chip in a donation. Literally any amount helps us keep this going. So go to organizedmoney.fm, sign up, maybe kick in a few bucks. We so much appreciate you listening. Let's keep doing this together.
So now the PMCs, they take their money from the revenue that's supposed to go to the therapist. Presumably they take some of that. Do they disclose to the therapist how much they take?
No. There's no transparency around that for the most part. It's very confusing. We've done a research study on this last year, and with nearly 700 therapists, and it was very confusing. Most of the therapists who are using PMCs don't know how much the PMC gets paid. They don't know what cut the PMC takes. There's no transparency around that. And if you were to join a traditional group practice, you would know. The group would say, look, we're doing a 50-50 split, a 70-30 split. It wouldn't be a secret. You would know. And you would then be able to calculate how much the practice is doing for you, how much they're taking, and whether you think that's a fair deal or not.
So who owns these PMCs?
Well, who owns these PMCs is also usually quite a mystery. We found that in our research, most of the therapists, the 85%, don't know who owns these companies at all. But who actually owns them is very interesting. It's a mix of venture capital companies, private equity investors, big tech, Google Ventures, for example, and Amazon. Own these companies, and also all the big major insurance companies, Blue Cross, Cigna, Evernorth, United, Optum. So these are the owners, and therapists do not really understand that. The other thing I should mention is that when they join a PMC, they become a 1099 contractor to the PMC. And
the customer records and information is owned by the PMC or the therapist in that relationship?
The PMC.
So effectively, they just become not an employee because they're a contractor, but they just start working for the PMC. That's effectively what's going on? Yeah,
it's the Uber model, and the PMC is the Uber, the platform, and they get all of the data. They do all the billing. They manage all the money. They even directly communicate with clients without even telling therapists that they're doing that, which seems like, a violation in many ways. And, the value proposition, I think, sounds really different if it were explained, like, for example, if the PMC value prop was explained in something like, you're going to become, it's an Uber model, and, we won't charge you a penny. We will do all this admin stuff. There's a 50-50 chance that you'll get paid more. That's the best we could say. That's what our research showed, 50-50 chance that you would actually earn more money going through them. And, you're going to give up all ownership of your patient data. So if you ever leave the PMC, you lose all of your patient records. All of that data stays with the platform. And by the way, we know the bane of your existence as a therapist are the insurance companies and their policies, but you're going to become a 1099 contractor to a company that is owned, or major strategic investors are those very insurance companies. How's it sound to you?
I'm imagining that's not the sale. That's not the sales.
That doesn't
pitch,
sound.
is
You
what
sound.
I'm
You're a
imagining.
terrible salesperson. I just have to say for these PMCs.
Yeah,
So
you're never going to get a job at a PMC.
Yeah. So, what? Okay. So these PMCs. I mean, I read your report on it, which I thought was really interesting, and one of the things that it suggested is that there are these AI related therapy tools that PMCs encourage, or I don't even know if they require, but they encourage their therapists to use.
Yep.
Can you tell us about some of them, and what do they do?
Yeah.
Because this is where we're getting to the creepy stuff.
Yeah, super creepy. I mean, and they really, the way they, Matt, as you said, quote, encourage therapists to use these tools is they say, if you use our AI tools, which I'll explain what they are in a second, then that's how, you'll get that protection against clawbacks. So it's a pretty strong,
So it's kind of
arm
forced.
twisting.
They're forcing you to use it. Yeah, forced vendor. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the AI tools are, when you go to therapy, and have a therapy session, if the therapist is going to be billing insurance for that, there needs to be some documentation that the session happened. So you have to have some basic information. It was on this date, started at this time. This is the diagnosis, and this is what we worked on in the session. You have to have some proof that you actually did a therapy session, so that if the insurance company ever says, like, where's the proof that you actually met with this person on this day, you have a document, a note saying that you did the work and that the treatment was necessary and all that stuff. And so a lot of times also insurance companies will want to see a treatment plan. What's the big picture plan for this person? What's their progress looking like, et cetera. So there is a certain amount of documentation that a therapist has to do when the insurance companies are involved. And so with the PMCs, what their documentations using AI do is they say, hey, let us record the entire therapy session. Well, many of these sessions you might have a Zoom therapy session online. Let us record the entire thing. And, then we'll create a transcript of that. And then from there, we'll write the documentation that needs to be written.
So it's sold as kind of a paperwork improvement that we'll do the work for you that you need to do. This is all around. I imagine this is all targeted around. You don't have to be a small businessman anymore. We'll do that work for you. You get to focus on your job and use our clever tools, and you won't ever have to worry about any friction between you and an insurance company or anything like that. We take the burden off you. I mean, is that kind of what the sales pitch
you're
is?
You're a better salesperson.
I'm better than you
I
at
am.
it.
Yeah. This is all built on transcripts and recordings of what patients should believe should be a private conversation between them and their therapist.
It just reminds me of we had an episode where on gambling apps, and one of the things they do is they advertise to gamblers who are trying to quit, and it just kind of seems like this would be I mean, you're against it because you're into privacy, but I'm thinking that it's going to be very profitable to know what someone is ashamed of or addicted to for advertising purposes. And I just would ask you to think more positively about the opportunities.
Think about the
advertising potential.
Yeah.
There's not only the advertising potential, which is Matt, this is an excellent point you raised. But there is also, I mean, how did ChatGPT, it was trained on all of the data on the internet, right? So amassing huge amounts of data, they ultimately, I think, want all of this data, all of these therapy sessions to train their own proprietary LLMs to create therapy chatbots that will ultimately be a replacement of a human and much cheaper.
So that's your view.
Yeah.
Like, is there evidence that these sessions have been used to train AI yet?
That's what Talkspace has talked about that directly in their investor reports, big time.
Okay. So,
Oh, yeah.
So other than them bragging about it,
I guess the other thing that, I just kind of jumped to this where I'm like, all right, if I'm, say, a foreign adversary, right? Or even not a foreign adversary, I would love to get my hands on a database of all the therapy sessions in America. Like that seems like a really, I don't know, didn't Nixon like go after what's his face's like he broke into his like therapist's office?
Psychiatrist
Daniel
records,
Ellsberg.
yeah.
I just feels like that's crazy to be like, yeah, let's do a centralized database of all the therapy sessions. I don't know. I mean, it's just maybe we just automate blackmail. It feels like there's so many really opportunities for new businesses here is kind of my point.
Yeah. And, how is all of this explained to the therapist, right, who uses the PMC? How is all of this explained to the patient, right? I mean, Headway, which is one of the largest PMC, says, therapist, you can use our AI documentation tools, and you don't even have to tell your patient, because actually the way our AI tool works is you type in a summary. We don't record the whole thing, the whole session. So you don't even have to tell your patients that you're using AI in any way, shape, or form. It's like crazy. And Headway, I should mention, is currently being sued in a class action for allegedly sharing patient data with Google. And is Google one of the owners of Headway? It sure is. And so isn't that convenient? It's very scary. Yes, your private data is being used for advertising. Your private data is being used to help them build LLM, chatbots that will ultimately be a different product that is not a psychotherapist, but, and it's not transparent to anybody. Who consented to that?
I think this has been really interesting. And I kind of want to close it out on a optimistic note, even though we've already done that. Let's
go for it.
We already did
do it again. We didn't want to do it again, but I'll do the same optimistic note, which is when I started studying this space, and you've helped me educate me on this, which I really appreciate, but it occurred to me that what we're really looking at is two paths. One path is what we saw with Illinois, right? Where we actually used politics to provide care to more people. It's not like any of the AI chatbots and stuff have gone away. It's just that now there's therapy that's available to people. The other path is to not give people therapy and ultimately to destroy this profession and this technique of healing people, and instead substitute this technology, which may or may not have beneficial implications. But it isn't actually like, oh, AI chatbots are coming in and doing like healthcare thing. It's actually like a political choice. Are we going to use resources to get people care, or are we going to actually move more resources to effectively like Wall Street, Silicon Valley types?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So move fast and break people, I think, is
That's
the way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed.
Was that the high note? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, look, 2.5 million people in Illinois now have access to mental health care. Like, that's a big deal.
It shows it's a choice, right? I mean, people, politicians, policy has the ability to say, actually, no, you can't just manipulate this industry to your own devices. So I do think that's.
I think it's a huge deal.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree.
We have a narrative problem where when something good happens through politics, it's just kind of discounted. Something good happened in politics where we come together as a society and make a choice. We made that choice in Illinois. And if it happened in Illinois, it can happen elsewhere. So I look at this and I'm thinking, this is actually like, if it's a choice, we can make the choice. If it's not a choice, if it's inevitable, then there's nothing you can do. So I do feel like there is something really important there.
Absolutely.
How are you using, your psychotherapy action network and these things to get the word out about exactly what's happening in the industry?
Yeah, trying to have conversations just like this one, and you guys have been amazing in your interest in this. And, one of the projects that we're working on in our policy committee is to write a model bill based on the Illinois legislation that other states can use and pick up. And so, we're trying to push the ball forward for sure and educate the public, educate clinicians, as well, to what is really going on, all these levers and companies and corporate models and how everything really works, so people can make more informed choices.
Great. Linda Michaels, psychologist and also co-founder of the Psychotherapy Action Network. Thank you for being on Organized Money.
Thanks so much.
So I'll just tell you, when I was, I guess, in my early 20s, the reason I went to therapy is because I had this coworker who was just like a total asshole who, I would be on a sales call. I would try to sell someone something, and he would be criticizing me while I was on the call about what I was saying, like that kind of thing. He was just such an asshole. I kept asking.
He's our guest next week.
Yeah, he's our next guest.
I forgot to tell you.
He runs the world now. Actually, it's true. He's in private equity. I'm not.
It's Rahm Emanuel, and he'll be on next week.
Yeah. Anyway, at a certain point, I kind of lost it, and I had a cup of lukewarm coffee, which I knew was lukewarm, and he kept bugging me as I was on the phone, and I just threw it at him, and he got soaked with coffee. And I had two bosses. It was a super well-run company, right? So, and one of the bosses came to me and was like, "Matt, that is totally unacceptable." And I was very sheepish. And he's like, "You have to get therapy. This is unacceptable." And the other boss had me walk around. He took me outside and he walked me around the block. And we were just silent. And then and he knew what this guy was doing. And we got back to the front of the office and he said, "Just don't make a habit of it."
But there are two ways to judge.
So I went to therapy, and it was a really good experience. It helped me, all the cliches, get in touch with your feelings and understand yourself a little bit better, and all of those things. It really does. It can be in this incredibly powerful thing. Deal with depression and all the things. It can do that and does do that for a lot of people. So this is an art and a craft that we have, and I just think it's important to preserve it, to expand it, and that's actually what's happened in Illinois.
Right. I mean, I think the real takeaway from this episode is that to the extent that it's an art and a practice that requires a certain amount of skill and talent, it's maybe a lost art or an art that we're on the precipice of losing because of these technological forces and also these sort of corporate forces that are pushing into the industry.
Right. They're not technological forces. Exactly. They're corporate forces, right? What's happening is the same sort of vertically integrated monopolization that we see everywhere, from cattle ranching to Hollywood, whatever, big tech is happening here because there's people looked at this industry and said, "What's a fragmented industry that helps people that we can destroy?" Right. I have an MBA. Let me get
Found
to
it.
Yeah. And I think that is that's we have to understand. There's 100,000 people in America who do this for a living. They just take nice things and smash them. And at the same time, we also see this populist pushback. So a public utility law, which is, and they are I said that there's two paths, but I think it's hard. It's hard to convey. Basically the problem is insurance companies don't want to pay for mental health care because they want to keep the money. And you can either force them to pay for that care because you're already paying them, or you can have them not pay for that care and use a bunch of technological gobbledygook to pretend that they're offering you something. And that's really what this is all about to me.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a fight that has gone through decades to get mental health coverage to be established as sort of a right and to be established as healthcare. This goes back to Paul Wellstone. This was one of his signature policy ideas. Al Franken picked it up. That's why it was in the Affordable Care Act. And, it's the kind of thing where policy thought they solved the problem. Because we did a mental health parity bill, and so it's all over. But nobody really knows that you can actually get therapy and get it covered, and Wall Street or corporate forces are exploiting that lack of understanding about the nature of this product to as I said, just disrupt the industry.
Yeah. Well. I enjoyed this one, and I also think it's always cool when you discover a new industry full of small business people who are doing their thing, and they kind of get turned on to realizing that what they're doing is very political.
That's what's interesting. I mean, when I was listening to her say, so many therapists got into the industry, for various reasons, and then realized that they were small business people. That reminded me of when we talked to Benjamin Jolly about pharmacies. It reminded me of when we talked to farmers about farming. The way in which the modern economy works, it atomizes everybody and puts them up against these larger economic forces in a way that can be radicalizing. I mean, I've seen it with industry after industry. It was a great discussion. We got another one coming up next week, and come on back to Organized Money. Organized Money is a production of Rock Creek Sound. Executive producers Ellen Weiss and Ari Saperstein. Our senior producer is Benjamin Frisch, who also does our sound design, all the mixing, and our artwork. Todd Mensch does our video.
If you love this topic as much as we do and want to learn more, you can follow my Substack newsletter, Big, at thebignewsletter.com, and follow me on Twitter at Matthew Stoller.
And you could definitely check out my magazine, The American Prospect. That's at prospect.org. And I'm on Twitter at DDayen, DDAYEN.
We're a new podcast, and the best way to help us get discovered is to leave a 5-star review wherever you get our show. And tell your friends.
I'm David Dayen.
I'm Matt Stoller. See you next week.